Hey, welcome back to another episode of Live here on Keystroke Medium. I am Josh Hayes here with my co-host Scott Moon, and tonight we're talking about tension in your story and how to use it correctly.
And how to lose a food fight with mac and cheese.
And how to lose a food fight with mac and cheese. That's right.
I like to keep it topical, you know.
Yeah. Welcome everybody in the live chat. If you're visiting us for the first time on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel and like this video if you get something out of it. Actually do it, even if you don't get anything out of it. Also share this video with your friends. This year's goal is to gain 1,000 subscribers, or get to 1,000 subscribers rather.
Gain 1,000.
We're gain 1,000, positive gain of 1,000. And hopefully this year we'll do it, but we can only do it with your help and viewers like you. What's the PBS thing? How do you do the PBS thing? Was like your support?
It's possible only through the support of viewers like you, or something like that.
What Scott said.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, everybody in the live chat. And we'll talk about the show sponsor here after a bit. But this episode of Live is sponsored by the Homefront Arc Omnibus by Tom Hoddle. It is available for sale on Amazon for $4.99. You get 3 books in this bundle, and it's set at a good price. Tom's a good friend of the show. Go pick up his book, and we'll talk about that a little later on. Also, if you haven't heard, and I've got a special banner for this one. If you have not heard, the Dragon Awards are open for a nomination.
Do we need to do the Facebook Live? I'm getting a message.
There's something wrong with it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So it's only on YouTube right now. I'm not sure why it's not going live on Facebook. I apologize. There's something.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. So if you're trying to watch on Facebook, I'm sorry. You'll have to come over to YouTube and watch it. I apologize.
Let's go old school. Old school.
Actually, somebody, while we're watching the live chat, make a post in the group with the YouTube link so we can get people over from Facebook, just so they know. But anyway, so the Dragon 2020 nominations are open, and I know several people that are in the running or in the eligibility to get nominated. I am trying to get nominated this year for military sci-fi. So if you have read Edge of Valor, or you just like me as a person, you can go to the Dragon Awards site and nominate my book Edge of Valor for the best military sci-fi book of 2019. The link's in the live chat. It's going to be in the show notes as well. There's already been several people that have said that they were going to nominate, and I know that there's a lot of other. Bard doesn't like me as a person. That's awesome. There's a lot of other people that are putting their books up for nominations, but if you would please, if you have not nominated, go and do so, and then make up a whole bunch of fake accounts and go nominate. I'm just kidding. Don't do that.
I hear it's fun though. I hear nominating people for the Dragon Awards gives you a warm fuzzy feeling.
It does give you a warm fuzzy. It definitely
nominate people, and there's lots of categories. And on a serious note, if you have lots of books that you like, you don't think are getting enough exposure, go see if they're on the list. Put them on the list.
That's right.
I
know we're not going to nominate Quirk fan fiction. We're not doing that.
Yeah,
Space Nine is right out.
My Little Pony Space Marines is going straight to the top of the Dragon Awards. But I think the Dragon Awards have not been full of drama. Am I wrong on that, or am I getting them mixed up with another award?
I have not seen that there's a whole bunch of drama. I have not seen that.
People just vote for them.
The Nebulas last year had a whole bunch of drama, if you guys remember that. And I had when I was still doing the Morning Haze, which I'd like to get back to at some point.
You should.
We had Richard on, we had Rhett on, we had Amy Duboff on to talk about their Nebula nominations. But there was a lot of grief about that last year because there was a whole bunch of indies that got nominated. Surprisingly, this year, which is interesting, no indies on the list. None.
For the Nebulas?
For the Nebulas. There's no indies. Not that I could see. I went down the list and looked at every single one. No indies. And I'm sure that there's not any reason for that at all. And it's completely legitimate. And there isn't any backward closed room back office meetings
I'm not sure anybody cares anymore. After the people that had gone to the nebula said they kind of felt like they're treated like third class citizens.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because that's dumb.
And it does not surprise me at the same time.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I can do that anywhere.
I
can get treated like a third class citizen any place. I don't have to go to a special conference.
Oh, look at that. Jake Lifton says, Josh, I did it and passed it on to a friend for more nominations. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Let's see. We are talking about tension in stories tonight. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about what we had going on this week in our writing. What I'm curious about is if anybody has had some kind of a breakthrough in their writing this week.
Oh, that would be really cool.
It could be small, it could be big, it could be anything, whether it's a something that's in your story or actually writing it or doing something different in your workspace that made it different or easier. I'd like to hear about that. So if you think of some of that, post those in the live chat. If you could do like a capitalized breakthrough and then put your breakthrough in it. That way it's easy to find in my list because sometimes they get lost. If you could do that, let me know. And we'll talk about them here later. Corvo says Dragon Awards taught me how to please a woman. They saved my marriage.
There's a bunch of them in there. There's nominated you for the Dragon Awards makes you better looking and makes your wallet fatter.
True.
I put in there that nominating for the Dragon Awards adds 50 pounds to your bench press.
I did not know that.
Yeah, if you want to get swole, you got to nominate for the Dragon Awards.
That's right.
The only way to happen.
Just make sure you're nominating my book.
Right. There are caveats.
Edge of Valor. If you nominate anything else for Mill Sci-Fi, then what's that movie Thinner, where he just gets like ridiculous?
Stephen King.
Yeah. That happens.
Right, where he gets cursed by the gypsy or something.
Yeah.
Thomas has a breakthrough. You want to read that one?
Let's talk about what we had going on this week in our writing, and then once they come through, then we'll go down the list and talk about them. So this week, I wrote a little bit in Valor 3. I came up with a good way to kind of wrap a certain section in the book, which I worked on today. I'm going to have to do some pretty massive sprinting over the next couple of weeks to get the book done. And then I've got some ideas on what I want to do after. I think right now I've decided that the third Valor book is going to be the last one in the series. For now, I'm going to cap the trilogy and make sure that everything gets wrapped up, and then work on something different. I've got a really cool idea that I want to do for a police thriller, and then also for kind of like a present day, but also kind of slightly like 5 years in the future, like really Loins of Valor. Yes, Loins of Valor. That's going to be the prologue to the other series. You guys, and look, I don't know what you guys are going to do in the live chat when I'm not writing Valor books anymore. Like, you will have absolutely nothing to say in the live chat. Nothing. Dragon Awards of Valor is actually that's yes. Well, I'm going to change the book to that. Yes.
I won the Dragon Awards of Valor.
If I do win that, then I'll change the name.
Name your next book Dragon Award winner.
Kid, this better go in the show notes. Valorotica, Ken.
Valorotica. That's actually that's tight.
Yeah.
For sure. Wow.
That's a callback to Screen Rant's pitch meetings. If you haven't watched
meetings,
yeah, hilarious,
super easy, barely an
inconvenience. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've done. I watched almost all of Aaron Sorkin's movies last week or the last couple of weeks for dialogue purposes. I watched all of The Newsroom, which was really disappointing. It was only 3 seasons. I'm not going to read Guy's last comment. That's ridiculous.
I'm going to read it privately. I'm going to chuckle
at it. And so I think I have one or two more movies.
I'll read it. Pounded in the Valor by my Dragon Award.
See, this is, if you're missing out on the live chat, this is why. The video is This makes it so good. You guys are crazy.
We really do got to get to the breakthroughs. People put a bunch of stuff in there. So at some point,
All right, let's touch on a couple of them. Let's see. Rick Partlow says breakthrough. I tried sprints for the first time on Monday. Excellent. I'm curious to see.
I
wonder
thought
if he
Rick lived in a sprint state, but
like his whole day is a sprint. I thought.
that's what I thought. But anyway, so
I'm wondering if he's updated the spreadsheet. Let's go look for February. Let's see. Somebody mentioned that that some of the equations weren't working properly. I'll have to check that out. Let's see. Where is Rick Partlow? Let's see. He started sprinting. What's today? The 24th. So he's got he averaged, got over 5,000 words. Holy crap! He got 8,000 words on February 17th.
Nathan has several 10,000 day words, but then he kind of alternates them with like lower count.
So let's see, where are we at for this month on the Rimo Challenge? We have 800,000 words written this month, and 1,200,000. Yeah, 1.2 million words. So we're almost at our goal. With a daily average of 33,367 words. That's crazy. Man.
Rick says the day he hit 8,000 was the day he sprinted.
That's awesome.
So
that's very cool.
Let's
see. Tom Hoddle says breakthrough. I got the second suicide novel outlined. Awesome. Everybody knows me. I like outlining, but actually outlining like a complete book and being done, like having the whole full outline is such a cool feeling. I think it's almost funner than or a better feeling than finishing a book is finishing the outline for me.
Outlining can be just as creative as writing narrative because you get in that creative groove and it can be very fulfilling.
Let's see here. Bart of Today says, inspired by your show on concepts, I wrote the story arc for the villain. If my main villain for my cyberpunk space opera, which underpins the plot of the entire multi-series. Awesome. Character arcs are one of the hardest things for me to do, and I usually wait until I have the actual plot done outlining before I go back and look at specific arcs. And then actually when I get the most of the plot outline, I look at theme as well, and then I kind of create my character arcs to adjust slightly to the theme that I'm looking at in the story. Let's see what else we got here. Kayleen Williams. Oh, lost it. Where'd it go?
Kayleen.
Wait.
Says, even sick, I can narrate quite well, but only for about 2 minutes.
Yes, we missed story time today. I was very disappointed. I was sad.
Excuse me.
Let's see. I think those are all the breakthroughs we had, unless I'm missing a couple. Guy Anthony says, I had a 19,000 word day on the spreadsheet, but been working edits and website for most of the month. Yeah, I have a feeling that I'm going to be... I've got a visitor. Carter, close the door, please. Okay, go and play.
Maybe we can talk about the fish again.
This can't
hear me.
Keystroke Media mascot is
yeah.
He found some Teddy Grahams that he had to show me, which is interesting.
Oh, that's good.
I tried to give him Teddy Grahams earlier, and he didn't like them.
Were they next to the macaroni and cheese?
Yeah, the mac and cheese that he dumped all over the floor
right before the show, like literally right before you press start.
Yeah,
that's what kids do.
Let's see,
timing.
That's right. Corvo says, when doing rough drafts by hand, I'll use different colored pins to represent key characters. It makes things pop out more.
I like color.
I like doing that. I usually use black when I outline on my legal pads, but there are a lot of times when we have a child, we got to breach.
Yes. We got to breach. We got a runner.
Yes.
Spread out. Set the perimeter.
Put some pants on. Dude, that kid never wears pants ever. He never, like, anytime he can take his pants off. It's crazy.
Life lessons. Never change, kid.
Well, what about you, Scott? What did you
Mostly I
Dude,
died this week.
You were pretty sick the last couple
I was
weeks.
pretty bad. I was pretty bad off on last Sunday. I started feeling sick at work, and I was like, I feel kind of crappy. And then by the time I got up the next day, I was like just completely bedridden for a couple of days, which is really unusual for me because I can't lay in bed very long because my back hurts. But so we did do that. I managed to I would get up because since I had to get up because I can't lay there without my back seizing up, I would get up and write for 30 minutes and then sleep for 2 hours. And I did that for like 3 days. So I actually got a little bit of words done. And then the last few days I've got back in the swing of things. The most exciting thing that happened to me writing wise is one, I'm making really good progress on Reaper 10, which is a relief because it's a big deal. I was worried about that.
Last Reaper.
It's the last Reaper. It's 10 of 10, and trying to tile it up and have the right emotional payoff. And Jeff and I talked about that we want some things that kind of come back in from earlier in the series, which that's hard to do because they're really far away. So I had to set that up. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. I'm having fun with it. It's longer. So hopefully it's good. I'm always nervous about books, but the most exciting thing I did is I found, because I'd watched the episode I missed where you and Lauren and you guys were talking about, and she mentioned something about a romantic Western that she'd worked on.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I wrote a Western one time. And so I went and found it in 2015. I wrote a pretty good chunk of a Western thriller. And at the time I was intimidated by doing the research because my storyline involves a lot about the kind of like pre-Romanov Russians, the Tsarist, coming to America type of theme there, a little bit different than a lot of Westerns, but it was really cool. I went back and started working on it and I had a blast. There's one day I got a little bit of writing done on my assigned stuff, on the Reaper and whatever else I needed to meet for my obligations. And then I just spent the whole day just doing whatever I wanted writing wise. And I would write for like 3 hours on this Western and not realize time had passed. I was like, that's how I remember writing being all the time. Right. You get up, you start writing like, holy shit, where did the last 3 hours go? I better go to work before I get fired. Yeah. Ken says it's Eastern, not Western. Well, they come to the West. They're in the West. It happens in Nevada. But so part of the idea with that is most Westerns, they all follow, and you got to follow the tropes, especially in genres like Westerns, but it's always people from the Eastern United States are moving west because that's the way the migration worked and the gold rush and all those things. And it's always people that were in the Civil War, whether they fought in it or just in it or running from it, coming out to start a new life. And I wanted the story to go the other direction. So I contrived the reason for this kind of outcast family of the Czars who's being hunted to have been granted land on Kodiak Island off the coast of Alaska. And then they had this big thing, somebody tries to come kill and have a big fight, and then they're fleeing. And so our characters encounter this family that's being hunted by these Russian Cossacks across the Old West in Nevada, but they're going the other direction. They're going towards the east rather than going towards the west, like a lot of the stories. So, but anyway, just the characters I really like, and I had a really good time with it. It was just something different. And I've been writing, because before Reaper and Shorty, I never wrote in first person very much, but now I've written 10 books in first person.
Wow.
So which for me, we talked about this a couple of days ago, how hard it is to keep tension going in a thriller type thing when you only have one viewpoint.
Right.
Because I can't just jump to the other side of the fleet very easily and show some things that happen. It has to all come through my main character's knowledge base. So that's very limiting, but also, it's good because like lots of successful fiction is written in one point of view, but I'm just used to using 3 or 4.
Right. And so when you're used to kind of building tension at one place and then jumping to another and building it again, it's kind of hard to keep it all focused on one. But then at the same time, that guy doesn't know what's happening over there. So the not knowing also builds the tension too.
Yeah. Well, and you can write scenes in the point of view of the villain or antagonist, if you like that term better. And so you can the reader, you can up the stakes because they know these things are about to collide, even if the characters involved don't. So
right.
It's a very good tool for, a lot of thrillers are written in multiple points of view.
Yeah.
If you're looking at like a true thriller, they're almost never written in single POV. So.
Well, we want to dive into tension a lot in this episode. Scott and I had a not a long conversation about it, but probably about 30 or 40 minutes. We talked about it the other day, and I thought it'd be really exciting to talk about. Chuck was going to be here, but then he had some family stuff come up, and he couldn't make it. So it's just going to be me and Scott tonight, which is fantastic. But first, I want to read the show sponsor for tonight, which again is Thomas Hoddle's Homefront. I'm going to link it again in the live chat just because the other copy's probably gone away. And there's the link in the live chat. And here is the copy. The Homefront Omnibus. A lot happens between the children of Armagosa and Second Wave. In one volume, 3 novellas show what's happening on Earth and elsewhere. Broken skies. A tragedy over Armagosa leads to an enemy closer to Earth. Warped. True FTL is here, powered by sarcasm and a dwarf. And Tishla, a mere servant, rises to unite 2 warring species if they don't kill her first. All the machinations that lead to the occupation of Armagosa build into a gathering storm of doom. Dun, dun, dun. And that is the Homefront Omnibus by Tom Hoddle. The link is in the live chat. Give Tom some love and go pick it up on Amazon today. All 3 books are $4.99 right now on Amazon. Boom. There you go. And
read and review.
And go nominate my book for the Dragon Award.
Or at real subtle.
Oh,
hint, nudge, nudge.
Go do it
more
right now. So we were talking about tension the other day, and a lot of people kind of use it wrong in literature and in books, and in TV it's done really well. Most of the time we've talked about True Detective a lot, which I think we want to try to do a breakdown of the series. At some point we're probably going to start that breakdown in a couple of weeks. Next week we have Eric Flint coming on the show. Then the week after that is probably we're going to start our breakdown of True Detective. I don't know if it's going to last more than 1 episode. We might have enough material to take us into 2 or 3 episodes, but I'd like to break down the whole season. Chuck doesn't know yet, but he's going to do it. And so what we're going to do is Scott and I are going to rewatch True Detective, and I invite all of you to do as well. I know it's on HBO, so that kind of limits some things. But if you have the availability to watch just the first season, that's the one that we're going to be breaking it down and talking about just the first season, structure-wise, character, dialogue, all the different kind of overlapping plot threads that kind of tie everything together and how they're set up in the show. That's what we're going to talk about, because it's tension points in that show are very very well structured within the total narrative. I'd like to do season 3 at one point, because season 3 does a really good job of building tension through 3 different time periods. And that's I thought that was going to be like, I thought it was going to get old when I realized what they were doing in the first episode. But then as you go through the series, it's really, really well done. So at some point I'd like to do season 3 as well, but we're going to start with season 1 and see how it goes and see if people enjoy how we break down that series.
And we can go through some other things too. You know, if this works the way we want to, then it opens up other things. Like if we want to break down a book or book series, or some other TV stuff.
Yeah, agreed. The reason we chose TV is just because it's easily accessible, and it's not like
it's easy for us all to get caught up. You know, like I can't go read all the Brandon Sanderson books by next week,
but so you should.
Yeah, but even then, I would be like, I'd have a very surface knowledge where Josh has read them all several times.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so one of the things that I heard, I can't remember if it was on a podcast or YouTube video, but it was talking about setting up tension in a script, but I thought that it applied very much so to writing short stories and novels, and that is how to actually set up your tension points and what to do with them to keep the reader reading. One of the things that one of the examples they used was the doorbell thing.
Doorbell trope,
where you have a chapter where they're doing something in the chapter. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Maybe they're talking to another character about something that happened. Maybe it's a character building moment or something. But anyway, at the end of that scene, the doorbell rings. And what a lot of people will do is end the chapter with that doorbell ringing. And then the next chapter is you're supposed to turn the page and keep reading so we see who's at the door. The point that this podcast was making is that a lot of times that's the wrong way to set up a tension point, because a lot of people don't understand how to then carry it through after they
deliver,
how to get the reader, give something to the reader that's earned. And so what he was saying is, instead of ending the chapter on the doorbell, you end the chapter on the character goes to the door, answers the door, and her dad is there that she thought was dead for her whole life, or something like that. And it answers a question, but then gives you another question on, okay, what do we have to do now? Because sometimes they were saying that sometimes the doorbell will ring, they'll cut chapter and then come back and it's like a pizza delivery guy, and the tension that you build up is now completely thrown away because you didn't give the reader something to ramp it up again. You built that tension up and then now it's lost because it's just the doorbell. Rick Mitch is just a lost method of answering questions. Lost asked a lot of questions that never got answered. And it was after a while, after probably about the third season, I kind of got burnt out on that. Set up the question and then don't answer just to get people to watch. I remember one of the key lines for the trailer of the last season was, all the questions will be answered. And then they answered like 2 of them and left all the rest of them unanswered. And I was like, you guys lied.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and we talked about examples. Scott, do you want to talk about one of the examples that we found, good or bad tension?
Yeah. So basically they talked about that. And I think kind of to go dovetailing with what you're just saying is that, so what it means is when sometimes it's easy to come up with a tension point or something really scary or dangerous to your characters, or get them in trouble, put them in a tree, light the tree on fire, all those things. But you got to be responsible with, because any tension points you build, you have to deliver on. I think that's kind of the key point.
Right.
We'll get to the one that I was looking at earlier today. If you've read The Blade Itself, so there's the main character Glockta, and you've talked about him before, and he's the Inquisitioner. He's been obviously horribly tortured in his own past. He's a very deep, kind of complex character. He's fascinating, but also very evil, and you never want to meet him and things like that. So there's a scene about a little more than halfway through the book where he has gone and basically captured all these innocent people, probably most of them, or semi-innocent people,
right?
Tortured confessions out of them, and then brought down a huge section of the government. And then he goes back to this person that's putting him up to it. And he knows this guy will probably kill him too. But he says, oh yeah, he did say one other thing. He mentioned these banks. And you immediately know that they're tied into something dirty, because his boss, Salt, says, yeah, don't worry about them. Don't just stay away from them. They're off limits. And so that sets up some tension. So, and this book obviously does it the right way, but if then you don't ever go back and have him, because if he goes and investigates the banks, his boss, who just ordered him to do all this horrible stuff, is then going to turn on him and do all those horrible things to him.
Right.
So he's going to be in extreme danger and probably die and be tortured. But he has to do it. And if you weren't going to have him go investigate the banks and then suffer the consequences, then you should have never brought it up in the first place.
Right.
So that's where I see a lot of times people are it's building tension is actually a lot easier than it seems. It's what to do with it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this
I think one
episode.
of the things that the Blade itself does, and Joe Abercrombie does as an author, is not only is he building tension with what the characters are doing, but he's building the tension with how he paints the scene too, because he does. You were mentioning this earlier, where like his narrative craft, his prowess actually pulls you deeper into the series because of how he presents it to you as a reader, and you feel like you're there more than another book that any other book. Like he'll just the way that he paints the picture,
Oh yeah,
and
the
then
way
he.
he. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that he was talking about Glocta specifically. When he writes Glocta, like sometimes I read it and I too am in physical pain because of how well he portrays Glocta being in pain all the time, and then how he talks. And I mentioned too, what's her nuts from Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
The professor, I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name either. She wears all pink. Somebody's in the live chat's going to tell me. But those two characters specifically are super evil characters, and they don't have anybody's uh, well-being in mind. But when they don't talk like they're this malevolent person. They talk like they're a super nice person. Like when Glocta talks, he's actually extremely polite, and even when he's telling you he's going to rip your toenails out, he's extremely
Dolores
polite about it.
Umbridge.
The Umbridge, there you go. Yep,
Yeah,
Umbridge. And then when Umbridge talks to the class and even Harry when he's in detention, she's super polite about it. And you know, you can tell as the reader, and even the characters can tell that these characters are bad, evil people, but presenting them in a way that's nice, because I think they overuse the Emperor Palpatine evil, right? Like Emperor Palpatine is evil, but he also is like ridiculously evil, like over the top. Like everything he says is just monstrous. And this,
he's sitting on a tall throne, has thousands of minions ready to kill everybody for him, and blah 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 blah.
Right. And I think well done antagonists are like Glocta and Umbridge, and people that are articulate, even in Stormlight Archives. Sadius is a really good antagonist because you can almost sympathize with what they're doing, because they feel like what they're doing is for the best, coming at it from both perspectives. Even Ken says this is a good example too. Star Wars: Han Solo looks nonchalant when meeting Greedo, but he unbuttons this weapon holster, and that is true. It sets up tension because we know something's going to happen. We know that this isn't right. We know that they're enemies somehow, and something's going to happen, and that's excellent. The Sauron types, guy, actually 100% the Sauron, super evil Lord of Darkness. One of the examples that I thought of too in movie and in book form was No Country for Old Men, talking about like just gripping tension when you're reading the prose and even when you're watching the movie. One of the scenes in No Country for Old Men is when Shigur talks to the gas station clerk.
Oh God!
And
with the quarter,
scene. Yeah. And that scene is probably one of my favorite scenes of all time, just because there's no guns, there's no explosions, there's no like it's just two guys standing in a store, and absolutely know that one of them is going to die, and you just watching this play out. And this other guy, you can see the character start to realize what's possibly going to happen. He's still confused, but he's also starting to realize this is really bad, and I don't want to be a
psychopath. He may kill me.
Yeah.
Why is he asking me to pick a heads
Right.
or tails on this
Yeah.
one.
And just the conversation that both of those have, and he's super confident and he's not amped up and he's totally relaxed. And I thought that scene, like, if any scene, and it's super quiet too when you watch, it's just them talking. And then when you're done talking, when the scene's over, you're just like, oh,
Yeah, you feel it
oh
physically.
man.
The other good one is the opening scene of Inglorious Bastards. So
Yes.
so he goes, the Nazi comes in there and he's, he knows that he's trying to get these people out of the basement, and he asks for milk.
Yeah.
Can you give me a glass of milk? And it's just so understated, but you know that the consequences are so severe, and you know it's going to happen, but it really builds the tension up, and then it pays it off. So those are some extreme examples of how to build the tension. But you have to set up something for us to care about, an inevitability that's going to go bad. And then that's where some people don't like some of the darker stuff, like with the Game of Thrones stuff, is that then he, like, for example, people hate Game of Thrones because everybody dies. Well, that's why it's so much more suspenseful than a lot of other fantasy, because the characters die.
Right.
And there's no guarantee. I mean, I thought that Eddard Stark was the main character until he was
Until he
beheaded.
wasn't.
Until he was killed.
Well, no, but that's also true. Like, and you read a lot of series, a lot of long running series, and then the expectation for tension, because you don't want the characters to die, kind of goes away. So you have to kind of come up with different ways to create that tension and make it real tension to keep the reader reading. It might not be the character dying. Maybe it's something else.
That's why I fall asleep in the Superman Man of Steel movie, because he's obviously
Right.
not going to die.
Right.
And you can only watch so many hours of buildings get knocked over.
Right. Yeah, and we were talking about Cormac McCarthy a little bit ago with No Country for Old Men, but also his story The Road is kind of an extreme example of almost how you can overdo that really gripping tension,
Right.
because it's so negative. Like, the entire book is one negative piece of literature that when you're done with it, you just feel mentally drained, because there's no happy at all in the book ever.
So should we do a spoiler on The Road for people?
It's been out for way long. If people haven't read The Road, then let's spoil it.
So the basic premise is that it's post-apocalypse, post-nuclear. It doesn't really say, if I remember correctly, but everything is ash. There's, survival conditions are absolute worst. And there's a whole bunch of scenes where, like, he finds a stash of food and is sad or upset or angry, I can't remember, because he knows that this is only going to lead to bad things. So it's like, literally, I found everything I need to survive, which I've been trying to do, and it's the worst day of my life, because now people are going to come and kill us and do all these horrible things. So nothing is good. And you figure out through the course of the story that he has cancer, and he has a very small son who he's trying to keep alive. And at some point, he's going to die, and he knows it, and he's got to find some place to put his young son. And half the people that he's encountered are cannibals.
Right.
So by the end of the book, you're really stressed out, and it doesn't really give you a great resolution to whether you depends on whether you're a wishful thinker or not, as to whether you think that his son made it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very artfully written, but you can only read about one book of those every 5 years.
Did you know in the book that they never name the kid or the dad? It's always the man and the child.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's been a while.
They never name the character. It's always the man and the child. And I thought that was an interesting way to write, because I don't know that of any other book that has main characters where we don't know the names.
Bart says, I already hate this book, which I knew he would, because I know he doesn't like the grimdark.
Yeah.
And it's like,
grimdark it's a really hard genre to like, because you have to really be okay with it not being happy.
Well, and I don't think I could read lots of books like that. But at the time, actually, and what made it really hard for me was there's two things. So when I listened to The Road, I had kids about that age,
Yep.
and I was a detective in the exploited missing child unit. So I was dealing
Mm.
with crimes
Oh
against children,
yeah.
and and things like that. And so there were things I was very worried about. It's like, can I, as a man, keep my family safe? And then you read this book, and it's just like literally your worst nightmare.
Right.
Like, what if I literally could not keep them safe because the world is ending? So it was, and it makes you think through all those things, and so it has some value, and it's extremely artfully written because Cormac McCarthy is brilliant. But that's actually not even his. I haven't read it yet, but I heard Blood Meridian's actually darker.
Really.
Yeah, that's supposed to be his darkest book. Full
He's
attention.
I like Cormac McCarthy just because his dialogue is not colorful. It's very like straightforward and cut and
Yeah.
um not flowery. It's very his prose is definitely not purple at all.
He also wrote All the Pretty Horses.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, he did. And that's another extremely good book. And if you read it or listen to it, the audiobook, it's full attention too, but it's not as dark because there's some, and we talked about that pre-show about what do you need to do to vary it. The road is dark all the time, but like All the
Right.
Pretty Horses, these two young men, they go down, I think it's like the early 1900s. They're going to be cowhands in Mexico. And one of the main characters, of course, falls in love with the rancher's daughter, and so there's those sorts of tropes. And he takes it to a level that it's pretty gripping and a lot of tension. It's not just like a romance, but when I first watched it, I thought it was just a romantic western,
Yeah.
but it's really a lot more than that. A lot of tension in it, but it has those beautiful scenes and happy moments, and then the darker stuff too.
Ken Brent's mentioned the gunslinger and the Man in Black. We talked a little bit about this, and there are some things that they build up in the Dark Tower that they don't pay off, and
Yep.
it's just, I think that's Stephen King's way. It's just how he writes. There, I don't know that he builds things up like I mentioned North Central Positronics, where they mentioned them pretty substantially through the first probably 3 or 4 books, and then it kind of fades off and they don't mention it again, except in passing, and we never ever figure out what North Central Positronics is, what they did. We don't ever figure out what caused the world to break, or move on. But there was a lot of things that they did set up tension on. I really liked the way that the characters interacted, like the 4 main characters, Detta Odetta and Eddie and Roland and Jake. And they built a lot of tension in the dynamic of Detta Walker because of her split personality and because she was such a racist on one side and not on the other, that there was a, like when they first got together in the drawing of the 3, there was a crap ton of tension. Anytime Detta Odetta came out and they had conversations, there was so much tension there because she was so mad.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really well done. And even when you're talking about Wastelands, you're talking about getting to Ludd and Blaine and figuring all. I wish they would have spent more time in Ludd, but the tension that he built up in Ludd with the characters that were in there, I thought that was well done. I thought Ludd was really well crafted. It just ended too quickly, that part of the story.
And which book did we decide is the one that had the Roland as a young man becoming a gunslinger in the what?
That's Wizard in Glass. That's book 3.
That's the one you didn't like.
No, that's book 4. No, I liked Wizard in Glass. I like 1, 2, 3, and 4. Gunslinger, The Drawing of the 3, The Wastelands, and Wizard in Glass. After Wizards in Glass, when you get to like Song of Susanna and the Wolves of the Call, I don't really like Song of Susanna. Wolves of the Call, it was okay. But it had that really meta, I'm gonna go meet myself and write about myself, Stephen King. And
it had the long thing where the writer that gets hit by the car.
Yeah.
He has a couple of books where he goes down there and tells that story. Yeah.
So, I mean, but he does a really good job of setting that tension up. He's just kind of hit or miss on whether or not he actually pulls it off.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, and he can he can go down some rabbit trails, and like we said, he either explains something in gratuitous detail, like with 15 chapters to cover it, or just glosses over it, like North Central Positronics,
Right.
and moves on.
There was a couple of other examples. I'm looking through my list here of the examples that I had down to talk about. I think really the you want to make sure that it's all about the stakes for your character, right? And you want to make sure that those um stakes are paid off well. And if you have something set up as kind of like we've talked about the gun in the first chapter, if you set that gun up, you have to use it by the end of the book,
Right.
or take it out. And you can do a lot of that with tension and with backstory to a character. If you set up something about a character and that thing is a mystery, for instance, we set up in Terra Nova, we set up um a basically a past character moment for our main character, Kit Carson, where everybody mentions the Belisarius incident, and everybody talks about it. We all know what it is, but nobody talks about it. Like, they mention it by name. Everybody in the characters know what it is, but our main character never talks about it, and it's something that she has had to overcome, and then get brought back into the Pathfinder good graces. And that was something that we had planned on paying off in a short story, and then never got around to it. And so that was that in my own personal writing, that is something where I failed to make that payoff on why did we build all that up, because it was such a sticking point between her and Hale as to why Hale didn't like Carson, and there was a lot of
But still,
conflict. And
but I also think that's still, it can be left as backstory, and so it can be sometimes some artful backstory where you don't deliver on it. I think that's okay. What I'm talking about more is like the doorbell incident.
yeah,
Who's on the other side of the door? Oh, just some guy. Moving
Yeah.
on. You know,
right.
that's lame, but I like the color of that, of that of an unmentioned, undescribed incident in the past. But you're right. You know, if you had done that short story, it would have been an enriching thing that, good reader magnet or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Kayleen had a good
Yeah. Kayleen Williams says, working on building tension. I found you need to give away some things. Not everything can be a secret. Otherwise, the reader has little to immerse in, like they're a character themselves. I think that's true. I think that a lot of authors try to like falsely kind of manufacture the tension, in that
right.
the characters know something, and the main character doesn't know that, but he should, and the other characters should tell them. But then the author forces the other characters not to tell the main character, so that the reader doesn't know. Doesn't have anything to do with the main character not knowing. It's just so the reader doesn't know. And they keep that secret from the reader. But I think that you give some secrets away and keep others, and answering them kind of in batches as you go. I think, and so you can consider here, that's true. Secrets from characters are one thing, secrets from readers are another, and not the same. It's very true. If the character knows something that they should know, the reader should know it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless it's the antagonist who knows something, and then if you're writing a story that has an antagonist POV and a protag POV, and then we do know things that the characters don't know, but it's organic, it's correct that the characters don't know that, and that's in and of itself could build tension, because then we know that something's bad is going to happen when the character goes through that door, because there's sharks with laser beams on their freaking heads on the other side of the door, and we're like, no, don't go through the door. It's like watching a horror movie and they go upstairs.
Yeah. In the Blade itself, and I'm sure lots of multiple point of view type stories or thrillers, they build that tension too, because you'll have like 4 characters, And by about halfway through the blade itself, where I'm at, you have like character B is directly experiencing something that pertains to character A. But
Right.
character A doesn't know it yet. So now
Right.
you as the reader know more than the character, and that builds tension because you're like, that character is going to step in it because they don't know what B knows, but I know because I'm the reader and I have all 4 points of view. So I think that's another way to kind of manipulate tension.
I think George Martin did it in Song of Ice and Fire very well by creating bias in the way that the characters understand or believe or know what happened.
Yep.
And so he allows the characters to kind of make up their own idea of certain past events, and they may or may not be wrong. And so going into the knowing they may or may not be wrong is an interesting way to build tension, because if they believe it happened a certain way, but we know that it happened a different way, but the way that they think it happened is how it's driving them to act, we know that it's wrong, and we can see them going down this path of, this is going to be bad, this is going to be bad, this is going to be bad, and then it ends up being bad. Or when we see Littlefinger betray Ned, and then they fight, Jamie Lannister and Ned fight in the courtyard, and he gets speared through the leg and whatnot. Like, that's all inevitable stuff. Like, we knew that stuff was probably going to happen, but it was the way that he set it up and did it was it made you like, when Ned was going to see what's his name, the kid,
the blacksmith.
No, when he was going, when he got betrayed in the throne room, Joffrey. Okay. You knew when he was going to go meet Joffrey that something bad was going to happen. You're like, Ned, don't go in there. That's dumb.
Right.
And
because you have more knowledge of the situation than the characters do, because your reader has all 4 viewpoints.
Right.
So it's a good way to build tension there. But then you got to pay all that out, and that's probably why the books are taking so long, is because he's got so many threads going so many different places.
Yeah. Yes, it was definitely Joey. It was definitely King Joey.
King Joey. Yeah, he was very popular.
King Joey the Third.
Yeah.
Ken Britt says we're talking about tension. It's like the twist at the end of Sixth Sense. It's not hidden, but it's not pointed out until that critical moment. The cool thing I think about that twist, which coincidentally is probably the only M. Night Shyamalan Ling Long movie that I really enjoy, is because when you go back and watch it a second time, he's absolutely dead the whole time. And it wasn't just they changed their mind at the end and be like, oh, this would be a cool ending. You go back and you watch it and you're like, oh yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, it makes the second watch through, and that shows you the depth of your writing abilities. If a second and third read reveals more than the first couple.
I had a couple examples, but now we've gone on and talked to so long, I can't think of what I had in mind for the other examples. Some things that I don't think you want to do for tension is you want to kind of mix it up. You want to kind of have some tension, like we're talking about in The Road, where it's very gripping, or in The Blade itself, where it's very gripping, and it's the character and the dialogue that's pushing the tension. But you can also have tension in a battle scene too. The thing sometimes that I get kind of bored and drawn out with battle scenes is sometimes they can just be repetitious and just a continuation of just explosions, and then you get like in the Michael Bay syndrome, where you have a big long battle and it doesn't really do anything for the character. But if you're going to allow a character to die, or the character is going to make a decision that's going to affect his character going forward, I think definitely need to put those in there, and then make them impactful as you go through the scene, and not just have a running gun battle where all they're doing is shooting, because it's not as cool as it is in the movies.
Ken's bringing up, there's several people talking about this in the live chat, talking about their scene tension and their story tension. And basic gist of the live chat conversation is that you don't want to go too much tension too early. And that goes
Yeah.
back to, because then you have to pay it off. And
Right.
if you have too much tension too early and you handle it poorly, then you've really kind of lost the trust of the reader. But when you have that kind of artful increase where it just gets almost unbearable up to a point, and then you start to have the heroes making their run at the ending, then that gives you some satisfaction, resonance.
Agreed. I think that's it's a good place to end it. There was a couple more examples that I wanted to talk about, but I think they're all basically to be saying the same thing. Tension, I think, can come in many different ways, and can be presented in books a variety of ways that. But I think the key to tension is pushing the reader forward. And if you're not pushing the reader forward, and you're not pushing the story forward, and you're not upping the stakes and then upping the tension as well, you really need to look at what you're doing structurally and story wise to build that tension, because you want the tension there. And somebody mentioned it earlier. We're talking about the different, and mentioning the difference between story tension and series tension, and kind of ramping it up over the series. If you know you're going to have a series, then you know you're going to need to build a series and stack on it as you go. If you're working on a story, just in one thing, you need to work on that tension on a smaller level, but also keep it so that the readers are moving through, and then you're paying that stuff off every time. You don't want to build the tension then not have anything happen. Because it's not like a jump scare in a horror movie where you're opening the mirror and then somebody goes and you get scared and you're like, that was so funny, but then you're amped up again for the next thing to happen. You want to make your scenes impactful and have that tension actually mean something in your book.
Yep.
I don't know, Scotty, you got any final thoughts on that?
It's all about, and tension and a lot of the other things we talk about. And I really firmly believe that the biggest thing that you have to do is you have to create some emotion, an emotional reaction in your reader or your audience, whatever storytelling medium is. And so doing tension and having twists and all those things, because it's the emotion that makes it interesting.
Yes.
It makes it different than the dictionary. So you have to figure out where to push those buttons.
To answer Guy, yes, the fish is still alive. Yes, there is a fish. He's still in there swimming around. I need to change the water out tomorrow. But yes, there's a fish, and it is alive. And the fish is named Bob, I think. I'm not sure. My kid named it.
Bob the fish. What's he
Bob.
do? What's he do when he dies?
Bob. That's
He
about
bobs.
it.
He bobs in the water. He's bobbing in the water.
Let's see. We got Eric Flint coming up next week. I saw a whole bunch of notifications. Did you guys know that the Writer's Journey did a bonus episode the other day? They did 2 episodes this week. One was if you're not watching the Writer's Journey, you guys are losing out, because live is just a
best thing.
Crazy hangout where nothing happens, and then the Writer's Journey is where you actually are learning what you need to learn. Let's see here. But we have upped our subscriber count significantly, and that's all because of the Writer's Journey. We're up to 846 now.
Nice. So all those times we've been asking people to go out and Shanghai people into watching us.
That's right.
Strong arm people on the street.
That's right. That's right.
So what I want everybody to
Hollow Fish of Valor.
Hollow Fish of Valor. What I want everybody to do is everybody tomorrow go out to Best Buy and log in to Keystroke Medium on YouTube on all of the computers.
Oh, that's a great idea.
In the store, and then leave.
I like that.
Just because I think it'd be fun. I used to do it all the time.
Also, Josh Gayu came out with a story, or another episode of storytelling with George Rockall Schmidt, where they're talking about Schmidt, and Walt Robillard had another Coffee and Concepts episode. Should have another one tomorrow morning at, I think it's 7:30. It'll come out. Yeah, and then so we're going to talk about True Detective in a couple weeks. So if you have the ability to watch it, definitely watch it and follow along with us as we talk about it, break down the structure. I think a lot of the conversation, the topics we had tonight about tension, will kind of carry through in that episode because there's a lot of structural tension built into that show that I think will be really good to talk about.
Yeah.
As a reminder, the Dragon Awards are open. Go and vote for Edge of Valor, best military sci-fi novel, 2019.
If you don't go and vote for it, Edge of Valor, and get it to win the Dragon Award, then there won't be as many follow-on books, and you'll never get to Holofish of Valor, whatever the other one was,
Essence of Valor, or whatever.
Valoratica, or whatever.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share us around on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram or wherever you're at on the interwebs. Let your friends know this is the best podcast around. Oh, we should have talked about that at the beginning of the show. We got a panel at 20 Books this year.
Oh, yes, we did.
The Keystroke Medium podcast panel, and we're going to have a whole bunch of guests or panelists lined up that are also podcasters, and it should be a good time. So if you're going to 20 Books to 50K, look out for that. I don't know what day or time it is, or once we find out, we will let you know, and then you can all come and make fun of us as we're trying to talk on stage about to look like we actually know what we're talking about. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of tension on the panel. Yes, exactly.
Give me some tension. Yeah.
Everybody in the live chat, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Guy, Jay Oliveira, Corvo, Kayleen, Barta today, Ken, everybody that was in the live chat tonight, Rick and Drew. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Come back next Monday. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium.
I want to take some of your dolls to the conference and just put them on around the edge of the table. So people are like, will it fall? Is Baby Yoda going to fall off while they're talking? And there'll be a lot of tension.
I can't even take you guys right now. I just can't.